plan. We're now joined live by Minister of Energy Stephen Lecce. Minister Lecce, thanks a lot for joining us this evening. So let's talk about the basics. We all know that Ontario is growing, Toronto is growing. How is this the answer?
You know, we need 75% more power, Bakari, as you mentioned. 4.5 cities of Toronto have to be added to the grid. And the question is, how do we secure our power for our kids and grandkids? For the first time in really Canadian history, we're building an energy plan for the next 25 years. A plan that's premised on affordable, clean, reliable power. It expands nuclear, it expands hydroelectric power, it expands public procurements, competitive procurements, and most of all, I think it buys Canadian and looks towards building a national Canadian east to west energy corridor. Yes, for pipelines and for transmission. This is the nation building project our Premier spoke about, to get on with building and doing it faster with more intention and really leveling up as Canadians that we buy from within. And that's why I'm very proud that we released a plan that guarantees we have the power that is reliable and affordable, really with a 25-year lens, ending the last government's, the former Liberals, where they were really making decisions based on short-term political, governing cycles of 4 years. We want to be a bit more ambitious. We want to be long-term. We want to integrate the system and make it work for the people of Ontario.
And, speaking of long-term and making this work, we also have to talk about, the environment and how this plan actually holds up that end of the bargain.
Yeah, I think that's really important because what I'm proud of, perhaps one of the most important things of this plan is that we're going to expand hydroelectric and nuclear power. We're leading the largest nuclear fleet refurbishment on the continent. We're expanding net new. Some of the largest nuclear generators will be built right here in Ontario. We also, part of our plan, expanded hydroelectric in Northern Ontario, clean, affordable power. So to your question about the environment, those are two massive options that we're going to lean into that are non-emitting, meaning they do not produce emissions. And because of our plan, because of our Premier's commitment to affordable power, we are going to get, by year 2050, to 99% of our electricity grid will be non-emitting, meaning we will have literally among the cleanest electricity grids on Earth. That's a great legacy. The name of this plan is Energy for Generations. It's about thinking about the long term, thinking about our kids and grandkids. And I think it's a beautiful legacy that our economy will be stronger, our power will be secure, and fundamentally our environment will be cleaner because we're going to have amongst literally on Earth the cleanest grid. And that's because of our plan.
And also, Minister, with respect to Bill C-5, we also have to, talk about the Indigenous communities. I do have to note that we did reach out to First Nations leaders. They are working on a response, and we'll get back to us. We'll share that with the audience when we do receive that. But, when it comes to the partnership, as, outlined in Chapter 8 of this, with Indigenous leadership, we're talking about loan guarantees. What kind of partnership is a loan?
Well, really, what it means is that the Indigenous organizations and Indigenous nations could buy in and own equity. It's a loan so that the Indigenous nations or the territorial right holders, that they can own the project. So we're providing $3 billion on the table to give them the capital to buy in, to own the projects, to be in the driver's seats. I think that's important. Economic reconciliation is about sharing the land and ultimately the benefits of our responsible resource agenda. One of the biggest challenges many Indigenous nations said to us is, look, we want to buy in, but Bakari, to your question, I don't have $50 or $100 million sitting around. So what we're doing is we're backstopping their equity investments so that they could participate, they could co-own or fully own, and they'd be in the driver's seat. Everything we do is in partnership. We look at every transmission line with Hydro One, 50-50. It's an amazing legacy that we can do this together. But I want to be clear, the plan is really about building for the next generation, for all Canadians, Indigenous, for people in rural communities, remote communities, the most northern, and yes, here in the GTHA and right across Ontario. It's a plan to ensure hydro rates never increase like they did by 400% under the former Liberals. A plan to keep our grid cleaner while keeping energy rates low. And I think that's the balance people want us to achieve. Frankly, every major stakeholder has come out, business organizations come out saying, finally, you're giving us certainty. You're giving us a roadmap, a 25-year North Star of what we're trying to work towards to force our systems to come together, to integrate energy, to plan for the long term, and ultimately to buy more Canadian. So I think it's a balanced outcome that will allow for wins for all communities right across Ontario.
And as we wrap up, how have you incorporated feedback from critics, and what is that response?
Well, I think one of the big issues we keep hearing, the reason why I created this integrated energy plan is because we didn't have a long-term plan for economic or energy planning. It was a big vulnerability. And really now we're the only jurisdiction in Canada that has a long-term plan that's going to drive our economy to help ensure Ontario and Canada emerges as the strongest economy in the G7. Look, we can't grow unless we have power. And we have to add 4.5 cities of Toronto to the grid by 2050. So by expanding nuclear on time and on budget, by expanding hydroelectric power, our entire fleet, by delivering new incentives for people to reduce the cost to make their homes more energy efficient, by getting government out of the way and encouraging more individuals and businesses to produce power for their own good. Like, it's these types of common sense initiatives that are game changers that help us build a nation and keep our people employed, keep our power affordable, and keep our grid clean. And that's the absolute commitment we're making today. We've heard that feedback. We've incorporated their best ideas. And as I say, there's a reason why everyone from nuclear to hydro to natural gas to renewables to storage, the entire energy system has come out saying, like, about time. We have a long-term integrated plan to build, to grow, to dream, to do the big things in this country. And we hear all governments talking about doing the big things. That requires a plan. It requires investment. And it requires leadership and courage to do those things. And I think our premier is demonstrating that in Canada, he's prepared to step up to keep our country united. That means pipelines. It means transmission corridors. It means building Canada strong.
Okay. Minister of Energy, Stephen Lecce, thanks a lot.
Thank you.